Let's talk now to Will Tanner, the director of the Onward think tank, someone who's been promoting the levelling up agenda for quite some time. Welcome to the programme, Will. First of all, from what we know about this white paper, and it's not fully public yet, we don't know all of the nuts and bolts, but from what we've heard this morning, is this the sort of thing that you've been arguing for? Are you broadly happy with what Michael Gove's been saying?
Yes, from what we know, I think we would say that this is the start of a regeneration revolution in the UK. We've been kind of talking about levelling up for some time now in various guises, and many governments in the past have tried and failed to close those enormous gaps between the richest and poorest parts of the UK, which are much bigger in the UK than for most developed countries. And I think from what we've seen so far, this does represent a serious plan to not just kind of invest a little bit of money over the next few years, but actually to change the rules of the game so that Whitehall and businesses have the institutions, the incentives and the information they need to change their behaviours and actually level up jobs, opportunity and civic pride in places that for a long time have felt left behind, neglected and left out of the national economy. So I think this is a good start. We remain to see the details, but there are some very positive signals so far.
Now, a lot of the criticism about levelling up over the last 2 years since this phrase, this video game-like phrase, entered our political lexicon, has been that we don't really know what it means. You have people on the right of the Conservative Party, like Ben Houchen in the Tees Valley, arguing that it means free ports and lower taxes and encouraging growth and innovation. And then you have other people who say it's all about redistributing wealth, taking money away from London and the South East and putting it in parts of the country that have been more left behind. Is there going to be a greater coherence to today's white paper, in your view?
I think the one thing that people will not be able to say about today's white paper is that it doesn't define the problem well enough. This is going to be a 350-page report that sets out in excruciating detail the problems that the UK economy has and what is driving this increasing imbalance between certain places like London and other places, especially in the North and the Midlands, that have decreasing levels of opportunity and increasingly stagnant wages. So I think this will be a detailed report. The government has actually defined very clearly the 4 things that it wants to focus on. It wants to focus on improving local leadership. That's things like mayors and giving more power to communities. It wants to improve on public services and living standards, making sure that things like health inequality is reduced and that educational attainment increases everywhere, not just in certain places. It wants to focus on private sector investment because this is not just a government initiative. This needs to require a huge amount of investment from pension funds, from private sector businesses too. And it crucially also wants to focus on restoring civic pride, giving people back that sense of belonging in their place that for a lot of people that has kind of been in decline and they feel like that's been lost over the last few years.
Some of the other criticism might well be that the government is now talking about all of these places that have been left behind, these places that might well have lost that civic pride, the places that don't have the same opportunity. But the Conservatives, in one form or another, have been in power for 12 years now. Why are we only hearing about this 12 years in to one form or another of Conservative government?
Well, Tom, as you know, I was in government about 5 years ago, working for Theresa May. I think you can see the germs of this agenda in her election manifesto in 2017, her burning injustices speech on the steps of Downing Street. And I'm delighted that Boris Johnson has taken that agenda forward and given it a huge amount more detail, more meat in order to really change some of these long-term trends. I think it's entirely welcome that the Conservative Party, for the first time in a long time, actually has to care about these type of places because it's in their electoral interest to do so, and that these places will be the electoral battlegrounds for the next election. That means that politicians of all parties have to engage with the levelling up agenda and make it work, because ultimately their success at the ballot box will depend on it. So this is, I think, the start of a process, a regeneration revolution, as I say. It's not going to be the end of the process, but this is the starting gun, and I think it's a very welcome and exciting development.